Hi, I'm Cheryl, people and culture consultant, coach, and facilitator. And this is episode 4 of the Wholehearted Hub with Cheryl and our January series on fear. In the last episode, we talked about releasing fears. And I just wanted to make sure to cover in this episode the fact that even when we talk about releasing our fears, that they serve a purpose for us. Their job is to keep us safe. And so the releasing part is more about it's like, they say if you love something, let it go. If it comes back to you, it was always yours. Sort of the same thing. It's like releasing the grip that they have on us. And I see it as part of creating a relationship with our fears, the same way we want to observe them without judgment. And that's been key. I hope that I've repeated that since episode 1, that this is really a practice in not criticizing, not judging the emotions that come up for us, the fears that come up for us, the things that come up inside of us, but observing them. When we think about our fears, we can also thank them for what they're trying to tell us to keep us safe while not letting them make the decision for us. And so that's the key thing. It's like they're always going to be a part of us. You can never really eradicate your fears. The point is not to try to eliminate the fears that keep us safe, but it's really to cultivate the courage and love that it takes to listen to them, to share them and move them out of the way of our action and success. Trying to erase them or like push them down or compartmentalize them or numb them. That was something that I definitely practiced with major gusto for a very long time. That can result in the opposite effect. They end up like popping out somewhere else that you don't necessarily want them. And then they maintain more control than your true self. Fears are messengers. So, what can we do to cultivate that relationship with them, listen to what they're trying to tell us, and then do something with that within our own control versus letting the fear be the one in control? So, in this final episode of January, I'm going to share a personal experience. It's a personal experience that I had recently with insecurity and the perception of what we'll label as rejection. And without sharing too much detail that isn't mine to share, I over the holidays I was at an event, and this event was not my event. I was accompanying someone to this event, and so I didn't really know people. And I mean, I knew that going in, and there was a period in the evening, and the evening was lovely, everything was wonderful, but there was a period in the evening where the person that I was accompanying had gone off with people that they knew to attend to something. And I was good, I was fine, and I went to engage with the people who were sitting at the table with me. There were two people who remained at the table that I was seated at. And I had turned to them and I had engaged with them and they engaged back. And then a moment later, another person ran up. What I will say behind them, they were seated and they both turned away from me and towards that person. And then we're in like a little circle huddle. And in hindsight now, looking back at that moment, I can see that like an activation happened. In the moment, I don't know that I realized it. I tried to distract myself. I picked up my phone, but something definitely changed. And I'm sure other people could sense it. So I had awareness in the moment that I wasn't coming from my best self or my most loving self, which is who I would like to lead my life with. And the awareness wasn't quite strong enough to be able to hold the power from my best self. It wasn't quite strong enough to take back the situation from my fears. So over the next 2 days, with some reflection and attention, I really saw the truth of what happened. The moment I was triggered by my perception of like rejection, isolation, I guess abandonment somewhat by those people. Is that true for them? Absolutely not. But this was just what the experience was for me in that very moment. And this, I could see my full ownership in everything. And I'll walk through two views of this situation with you. The first one, as I reflect, the first potential situation is where I judge myself really harshly for my choices and my behaviors and letting my emotions get the better of me. I can beat myself up and dwell on it for days, further perpetuating my own suffering and the suffering of those around me. Or two, I can go into it all, show myself kindness, and acknowledge the pained parts of me that longed to belong and to be connected in that evening, in those circumstances, in that moment, and use it as a deep learning about the ways that I still struggle with certain triggers. And in reality, there's a third option. The third scenario is where I blame everyone else for how I feel and my bad behaviors and absolve myself of any and all responsibility at all, learning nothing. I know I have been that person in my life. Let's be true. And so, in this last episode, I just want to talk about how true belonging is the practice of believing in and belonging to yourself. I think it was last episode that I read from Brene Brown's Atlas of the Heart about the true belonging. And so, true belonging is really belonging to, believing in yourself so deeply that you can share your most authentic self with the world. And that includes taking ownership of when we are seemingly imperfect. I mean, perfect doesn't exist, but seemingly imperfect in our view of our best selves. And being that person when our fears take the wheel, which they inevitably will here and there. We are human, and how we show ourselves love throughout that scenario. So if I look back and think about that reflection and those realizations that I had in those couple days following, I made the choice to share that with the person that I was accompanying at that event because they sensed the change in me and were like, what's going on with you? And I was like, I'm fine. And the truth is that I wanted to be fine, but I wasn't. I was pretending. And as part of the protection that we have deeply programmed, we judge our fears, we judge ourselves, and can turn mean. I, for years, have turned very mean against myself, and I don't do that anymore. It doesn't feel nice. And the alternative can be super vulnerable. Next month is focused on vulnerability, empathy, and some of the bits in between. And I look forward to sharing a mix of actions and personal experience and ideas for you. But for right now, to wrap up January, I leave you with this reflection opportunity. What is the message your fear is trying to tell you? And if you could make it a friend versus foe, what would that action look like? What would it take for you to turn the fear into a positive relationship in your life? Write it down, put it in the notes in your phone, whatever it is that works for you. And then I would encourage you to practice, try it, talk to it. Maybe in turning it into a friend, you give it a name. Maybe it's like rude Rufus. I don't know, I'm making this up. But that is what I leave you with. So, observing your fears, what is the message that they're trying to tell you, and what would it take to turn it from foe into friend? This was the final episode of January. Thank you for being here. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I look forward to seeing you in February to talk about vulnerability and empathy. And maybe we can learn about having empathy for our fears. Otherwise, thank you for being here, and I will see you next time.